I moved to a quiet town for peace. Every night at the same time, every light goes out. Not a blackout. A signal. They walk into the dark together. They kneel. And something watches. I didn't follow them at first. Now it knows my name. When I first arrived, the town looked like a photograph that had been left in the sun too long. Everything was faded but intact. The welcome sign leaned slightly to the right, as if tired of holding itself upright. The gas station had one pump that worked and one that looked decorative. Main Street was 5 blocks long if you counted the empty lot where something had burned down and never been replaced. I moved there in late autumn, when the trees had given up and the wind carried that hollow sound that means winter is practicing. My house was a rental at the edge of town, a narrow place with peeling white paint and a porch that creaked in a friendly way, like it wanted you to know it was still alive. The landlord handed me the keys, smiled without showing teeth, and said, "You'll get used to the quiet." I thought he meant the lack of traffic, the absence of sirens, the way nights stretched on without interruption. I did not yet understand that quiet could be scheduled. The first evening, I unpacked slowly. Plates in cabinets. Clothes in drawers. Books on shelves that bowed under their weight. Outside, the town settled into itself. Porch lights blinked on one by one. Windows glowed warm and yellow. Somewhere down the street, someone practiced piano, the same hesitant melody repeating like it was afraid to move forward. I checked the time out of habit. 7:48 in the evening. At 7:59, the piano stopped. That alone would not have mattered. People stopped playing. Dogs stopped barking. But then I noticed the street. Every porch light went dark at once. Not flickering. Not one by one. All at the same instant, like someone had reached down and pinched the town between two fingers. I stood at my front window, a glass in my hand, watching the blackness settle. No engine started. No doors slammed. No voices carried through the air. It was not bedtime quiet. It was absence. I laughed, because laughter is what you do when something is strange but not yet frightening. Power outage, I told myself. Rural grid. Happens all the time. Then my kitchen light stayed on. I looked down at the lamp glowing beside me, then back out at the street. My house was the only lit thing for blocks, a small island of color in a sea of dark. I suddenly felt exposed, like I was standing on a stage I had not agreed to perform on. At 8 o'clock exactly, my light went out. Not a flicker. Not a fade. Just gone. I stood there in the dark, heart thudding, the clock on my phone lighting my hands. 8:00. No signal bars. No service. The lights came back on at 8:05. Everywhere. All at once. The piano resumed, picking up the same note it had left hanging, as if nothing had happened. I slept badly that night. When morning came, I convinced myself it had been coincidence layered on coincidence. Towns have routines. People share habits without realizing it. Power companies test grids. There are explanations for everything if you want them badly enough. I wanted them. The next day, I asked around. At the diner, I mentioned the blackout to the waitress, a woman with tired eyes and a name tag that said Marlene. She paused with the coffee pot mid-pour and looked at me like I had spoken a word in the wrong language. "What blackout?" she asked. I told her the time. 7:59. 8. 5 minutes. She poured the coffee and said, "Huh," in a way that meant the conversation was over. At the hardware store, I tried again. The man behind the counter tightened his jaw when I mentioned the lights. "Probably just your house," he said. "Old wiring." "But the whole street, old town," he cut in. "Things happen." No one would meet my eyes for long. That evening, I prepared. I charged my phone, set an alarm for 7:57, and sat in my living room with every light on. I felt foolish, like a child daring a monster to appear. At 7:59, the air changed. I cannot explain it better than that. The room felt smaller, as if the darkness outside had pressed its face against the windows, breathing fog onto the glass. The hum of electricity in the walls stopped, mid-note, like a thought interrupted. All the lights went out. This time, I did not move. I did not breathe. I listened. From outside came a sound I had not noticed before. Footsteps. Dozens of them. Soft. Measured. Moving in the same direction. I crept to the window and pulled the curtain back a fraction of an inch. The street was full of people. They walked without flashlights, without phones, without speaking. Neighbors I recognized by their shapes and gaits. Old men. Couples. Children holding hands. All of them moving toward the center of town, their faces turned forward, their homes dark behind them. No one looked at my house. I checked the time by the faint glow of my phone screen. 8:02. I understood then that the lights were not the event. They were the signal. And I was the only one who had not been told what to do when they went out. I stayed inside until the lights returned at 8:05. When they did, the street was empty again, like it had all been a shared hallucination. Doors opened. Porch lights flicked on. Somewhere, someone laughed. I locked my door and sat on the floor until morning. I am writing this now because tonight, for the first time, someone knocked on my door at 7:58. They did not knock again. And I know, with a certainty that makes my hands shake, that on the next page of this story, I will tell you what happens when you decide to follow them instead of hiding in the dark. I did not open the door when the knock came. I stood on the other side of it, my hand hovering inches from the knob, feeling the vibration of my own pulse travel up my arm. The knock had not been loud. It was polite. 3 soft taps, evenly spaced, like someone who knew they would be heard without insisting. At 7:59, the house went dark. I did not jump this time. I expected it. What I did not expect was the sound inside the house. A faint creak above me, slow and deliberate, like weight shifting on old wood. I live alone. The rational part of my mind tried to assemble explanations. Temperature changes. Pipes. Settling beams. The rational part was losing ground fast. The sound moved from the ceiling to the hallway, then stopped directly outside my bedroom door. No handle turned. No door opened. A voice whispered my name. Not loudly. Not urgently. It said it the way someone does when they are reminding you of something you promised. I backed away until my legs hit the bed. My phone vibrated in my hand. No signal. No messages. But the screen lit anyway, and for just a second, I saw a reflection behind me that was not mine. Tall. Arrow. Too still. At 8:05, the lights came back on. The hallway was empty. The house was silent. My front door was still locked. No footprints. No signs of forced entry. Just the lingering certainty that something had been standing where I could not see it, waiting for the dark to finish its work. The next morning, I packed a bag. I told myself I would leave at noon, when the sun was high and the town looked harmless again. I loaded my car with clothes, my laptop, the notebooks I had started filling with observations and times and sketches of street layouts. As I worked, I felt eyes on me from behind curtains, from cars that slowed too much as they passed. At 11:45, Marlene from the diner stood at the end of my driveway. She had not driven. She had not walked up from the street. One moment she was not there, and the next she was, holding her apron in her hands like she had just remembered she was wearing it. "You're not supposed to leave," she said. I asked her why. She looked tired in a deeper way than before, like exhaustion had settled into her bones years ago and never left. "Because then there'd be a gap," she said. "And gaps get filled." I asked her what happened at 8 every night. She glanced at the sky, even though the sun was bright and unconcerned. "We go where we're told," she said. "So it doesn't come where it wants." I asked her what it was. Her mouth opened, then closed. "We don't say it in the light," she said. "And we don't say it to people who haven't seen it yet." I told her I had seen something in my house. She nodded, slow and resigned. "Then you're late," she said. "You should have followed us the first night." At noon, my car would not start. The battery was fine. The engine turned, coughed, and died, like it was refusing on principle. I tried again and again until the sound drew attention. Neighbors stepped onto porches. Watched. No one offered help. By evening, the choice had been made for me. At 7:58, I stood on my porch. My door was locked behind me. The street filled with people as it had before, emerging from houses like shadows given shape. No one spoke. No one acknowledged me, but when they started walking, I walked too. We moved toward the center of town, toward the empty lot where the burned building had never been replaced. The ground dipped there, a shallow bowl hidden by weeds and cracked asphalt. As we approached, the air grew cold, sharp enough to sting. At 7:59, every light went out. This time, I did not need light to see. Something occupied the center of the lot, something that did not reflect light so much as swallow it. Its shape was wrong in a way that made my eyes slide away when I tried to focus. It was tall, but not upright. Wide, but not solid. It felt unfinished, like a thought that had been abandoned halfway through becoming real. The people around me knelt. I stayed standing. The thing shifted. I felt its attention like pressure against my chest. Images flooded my mind that were not mine. The town, decades ago, when the roads were dirt and the nights were darker. A choice made. An agreement struck. Safety in exchange for obedience. Darkness contained by routine. A voice spoke, not aloud, but directly into the place behind my eyes where fear lives. "You are seen." I understood then. The lights were not turned off to hide from it. They were turned off to feed it. Attention. Presence. The act of being seen without seeing back. Every night at the same time, the town gave it what it wanted so it would leave them alone the rest of the day. And now it had noticed me noticing. The thing leaned closer. The people bowed lower. I felt myself being measured, weighed not by my body but by my willingness. "Stay," it said without words. "Or be followed." At 8:05, the lights came back on. The lot was empty. The people rose, turned, and walked home. No one looked at me. No one needed to. I am still here. I turn off my lights at 7:59. I walk when they walk. I do not ask questions in the daylight anymore. The thing does not come into my house now. It stands at the edge of the street sometimes, just out of focus, as if reminding me that it remembers our conversation. I am writing this because last night, as we knelt, I saw someone new at the edge of the crowd. A man I did not recognize. He was standing where I had stood. Lights still on in his house. Confused. Curious. If you are reading this and thinking of moving somewhere quiet, somewhere small, listen to me. Ask what time the lights go out. And if no one answers, leave before you see it for yourself.